So, good morning. I'm so excited to hear you. And when I heard calling the son of the head of the NSA an ass, I'm like, oh, that's ADD. That you just do the first thing that comes to your mind without thinking about it, which can be really helpful, but it can hurt a whole lot of people's feelings. By training, I'm a psychiatrist. I've been looking at the brain for the last 25 years. Amen Clinics has built the world's largest database of brain scans related to behavior. We have 125,000 scans on people from 111 countries. ADD has been the number one reason why people come to see us. And we've seen many superstars, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs. And what I came to realize is ADD is associated with creativity, with power, with influence and success. So if you think of Robin Williams, open about his ADD. Bill Clinton, Time magazine said he was only a pill away from greatness. They meant Ritalin. And Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian. But what I also learned is ADD is associated with incredible failure, frustration, and tragedy. Think Robin Williams, Bill Clinton, and Michael Phelps. And I want to talk about how you can, if you have it, use it to your advantage, because there are incredible advantages with having it. But if you don't know, it can hijack your life and make you and the people you love miserable. So here is an example of a SPECT study. SPECT is a study we do at Amen Clinics. It's a nuclear medicine study that looks at blood flow and activity. So it's different than a CAT scan or an MRI. Those are anatomy studies. They show what the brain actually physically looks like. SPECT looks at function, and functional problems almost always precede structural problems. I lovingly say this, but psychiatrists are the only medical doctors that never look at the organ they treat. Think about that. In 1980, when I told my dad I was going to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor. Who does that to their child? But that's a whole nother issue. The hallmark symptoms of ADD: short attention span, but not for everything. It's for regular, routine, everyday things: homework, schoolwork, paperwork, chores. For things that are new, novel, highly stimulating, or frightening, people with ADD can pay attention just fine. That's why many people who have it never get diagnosed with it, because they'll say, like President Bush, I can pay attention if I'm interested. And when he said that, I'm like, not two ADD presidents in a row. And we could do a whole talk on the new one. So short attention span, distractibility, so they see too much, they hear too much, they sense too much, disorganization for time and space, and they tend to procrastinate. They actually won't get something done until somebody's mad at them to get it done. And impulse control issues. They often don't think about the consequences of what they say or do before they do it. So this is Sandy. She's the first person I ever scanned in 1991, and she came to the hospital with a suicide attempt. And the suicide attempt was in reaction to a fight she had with her husband. And as I was sitting there talking to her, I'm thinking, she has ADD. She has an 8-year-old son who has it. Any of you who have children that have it, they got it from you or they got it from, your spouse. It's genetic. It runs in families. It's really clearly genetic. So she had an 8-year-old son that had it. She had an IQ of 144, but never finished high school. Never finished college. And I went, well, how did you study? Classic ADD way of studying. She didn't, until the night before an exam. She'd come home from a date, go, oh, I have a test tomorrow, put on a pot of coffee, stay up all night, and that's how she did school. So when I suggested maybe she had ADD and we could look at helping her, she goes, oh no, adults don't have it. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the doctor. And she fussed with me about treating it. Well, that morning I went to the lecture on brain SPECT imaging and I went, well, let's look at your brain. And all of my patients love the idea of looking at their brain because they don't want us to make diagnoses based on symptoms. They want us to act like real doctors and have biological information. So here is Sandy's scan at rest, and we do 2 scans, one at rest, one when you concentrate, because people with ADD can rest just fine. It's when you try to get them to do something there's trouble. And here's her brain when she tries to concentrate. And when you see the holes, she doesn't have holes in her brain. What that means is those are areas of low blood flow. And this one image explains so much. The harder they try, the worse it gets. They end up to be doing self-stimulating behaviors. I mean, what's the medicine we use? We use Ritalin or Adderall or stimulants. Why? Because they prevent the shutdown from occurring. And if your brain is not properly stimulated, you'll go stimulate it yourself, either through having affairs, through racing cars, through doing extreme sports, to starting new companies, to taking risks, just as a way to turn your brain back on. And when she saw her scan, she said, you mean it's not my fault? And I wear glasses when I drive, so I took the glasses out of my pocket, put them on my face, and I said, you know, having ADD is sort of like people who need glasses. People who need glasses aren't dumb, crazy, or stupid. Our eyeballs are shaped funny, and we wear glasses so we can focus. People who have ADD aren't dumb, crazy, or stupid, but you need help with focus. So what I want to do in the last 12 minutes or so is give you 5 important business lessons I've learned about ADD after seeing about 20,000 people who have it. The first thing is you want to stop being in denial. It's real. It's not made up by the pharmaceutical companies. It's been described in the medical literature for over 120 years, and left untreated, it devastates people's lives. 33% never finish high school, the one measure of success in our society. According to a study from Harvard, 52% of untreated ADD adults have problems with substances that are not good for your brain. Obesity, because you're in a war for your health. I mean, I'd love to learn more about course, because everywhere you go, someone's trying to shove bad food down your throat that will kill you early. I have a brand new book out in stores called The Brain Warrior's Way, because I just see our society is not helping our health, it's hurting us. Depression is high because of the constant failure, divorce, incarceration, bankruptcy. Even a brand new study on ADD is associated with a form of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which is actually the dementia Robin Williams had before he killed himself. So let's just get on the same page and admit it's a problem. The second big lesson that I learned is you want to embrace it, because ADD also comes with all sorts of benefits. People who have it are often highly intelligent, creative, because when you drop out your frontal lobes, that's when your brain gets outside of the sandbox. That's when you actually become more creative. The busier your frontal lobes are, yes, you can get something done and you're laser focused on it, but you'll do it the way everybody else has done it. If your frontal lobes are low, you tend to be more creative, spontaneous. Many successful people, Thomas Edison, was argued people that he had ADD and had so many thoughts but was persistent. So I'll get out. Terry Bradshaw is actually one of my patients. He said that on Leno. I did the big NFL study at a time when the NFL was lying they had a problem. We have scanned and treated 200 of them, but his ADD preceded him playing football, Justin Timberlake, many CEOs, and Mark told you his story. These are people who run toward fires. We need them desperately in our society, as opposed to people like me who run away from fires, right? I mean, that, in my mind, is a little bit more rational, but we definitely need both in our society. So by embracing your ADD, that means know what you're good at and know what you're not really good at. And when you hire people, and I think this is one of the things I work on with my own patients a lot, is don't hire people like you, but rather hire people who complement you. So if you really have ADD, your executive assistant, you don't want her or him to have ADD, because together you will have way too many ideas and you will not be able to execute properly on any of them. It's better to have people who can organize, follow through, and finish the ideas that you have. So when I hire someone, I ask them about school. I ask them how they did in school. I ask them what their teachers said about them. I ask them about their organization. I ask their references. Were they on time? How was their space? Because I don't want to hire, unless it's the right job for somebody who has ADD, whether it's in creative or in sales, you want to just know where's the best fit in your organization. The other big lesson that I learned from looking at the scans is ADD is just not one thing. ADD is at least 7 different things in the brain, and that's why Ritalin and Adderall are controversial. It's not that they're not awesome drugs. It's if you give them to the right person who has ADD, it can be literally like a miracle. And if you give it to the wrong person who has ADD, you can completely disrupt their life. So each presents a little bit differently, and they require their own treatments. And actually, one of my gifts to you, if you email us, and I'll show you where, I'll give you a copy of my book, Healing ADD. I describe it in great detail. So just quickly, the classic type, hyperactive, restless, impulsive, can't concentrate. The inattentive type, more common in girls, trouble with attention, but never really very hyperactive or impulsive. The over-focused type, often children and grandchildren of alcoholics. They have ADD, plus it looks like OCD. The temporal lobe type, people with dyslexia, but also can have temper problems. Limbic, ADD plus mood problems. Ring of fire, people that are just enormously sensitive in their environment. 80% of them are worse on a stimulant. And anxious ADD, people whose mind goes blank. They suffer with a lot of anxiety, along with procrastination, short attention span, and so on. The fourth principle is if you have ADD, taking medication or targeted supplements. I'm a huge believer in using nutrition and natural supplements to optimize your brain. But either one is not a sign of weakness. Too many people think, well, if only I tried harder, I would do better. But what you saw in the scan, which I've seen thousands of times, is the harder people with ADD try, the worse it gets. So it's sort of like you can't see, let me shame you or let me punish you because you can't see. It's just sort of dumb. But if you don't have ADD, using a stimulant, because I have scanned people who didn't have ADD, and then we gave them a stimulant, it disrupted the function of their brain. It can make them obsessive, it can make them anxious, it can make them moody. It's not a good idea. Good for the right person, disaster for the wrong person. So I just want you to remember this picture. The harder she tries, the worse it gets, and when we treat her, she does so much better. And so this is very personal to me. I have 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and my oldest daughter, who's number 2, beautiful, sweet, easy, loving child. But the truth is, I never thought she was very smart. And it pains me when I say that, but I'm just being honest with you. I had to teach her the same thing over and over again. She didn't learn her times tables till she was in the 5th grade. When she was in 3rd grade, I take her to a psychologist, and I'm like, test her. Because I'm thinking something's not right. She has a learning disability. And the psychologist basically told me she wasn't very smart. Now, she didn't say it that way, but she tested with an IQ of 92, and she goes, but she's in this really high-achieving family. She'll be okay because she works so hard. And in 8th grade, at the end of 8th grade, she won a Presidential Scholar Award, not for academics, but for effort. I mean, so as a parent, how do you not love this child? But in 10th grade, at a college prep school in the Napa Valley, she fell apart. She's staying up every night till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to get her homework done. And one night she came to me in tears and she said, Dad, I don't think I'll ever be as smart as my friends. And it just broke my heart. And the next day I scanned her and I wept when I saw this scan because I'm helping all these people, and one of the people I love most in the world is suffering with low function in her brain. And the next day, on 10 milligrams of Ritalin, this is what her brain looked like. And I knew, because I'd had a lot of experience, it was going to change her life. And 3 months later, it's a girl who never got an A in her life. 3 months later, in a college prep school, she got straight A's. For the next 10 years, she got straight A's. She got into the University of Edinburgh's vet school, one of the best veterinarian schools in the world. And those of us that are physicians know it's harder to get into veterinarian school than into medical school. I mean, it just radically changed the trajectory of her life. So those of you that are like, oh, no, I'll just get my children a tutor. I hate medicine because of fake news in a lot of ways, how they make you feel almost ashamed if you take medicine. It's just not my experience. I mean, yes, let's try natural things first, but if they don't, I always carry around Brianne's story in my head. The last point I want to make is that you will make more money if you start looking at and caring about your brain, even if you don't have ADD. So what I have learned is your brain is involved in everything you do, how you think, feel, act, and interact with other people. Your brain is the organ of judgment, personality, character, and every business or personal decision you make. And when your brain works right, you work right. And when your brain doesn't work right, you have trouble in your life. A healthy brain, happier, physically healthier because you make better decisions, wealthier and more successful. When your brain is not healthy, sadder, sicker, poor, less successful. So that's been the mission of my life, is getting people, if their brain looks like that, let's fix it. Imaging helps us understand head trauma, drug abuse, Alzheimer's disease. And I just want to start with this fun story. I'm actually here with my CEO, Terry, who brought her daughter to see us, and she had such a wonderful response. Terry came to work with us, and initially when I scanned her, I was horrified. See, I think you should do pre-employment scans on people. But she was awesome, and I loved her, but I knew this brain is going to be headed for trouble, to be a burden on the people she loves, and she's not going to be as good for me. So with a lot of encouragement for me, she did all the things I asked her to do, and 11 months later, her brain is better, which means her 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s are going to be dramatically better than if she's left to a brain that just continues to deteriorate. So that's my time with you. If you want a copy of this book or learn more about what we do at Amen Clinics, enter your email and mailing address at add.upfront.com. Thank you so much.